Julius Robert Oppenheimer was born April 22, 1904. His father, Julius Oppenheimer, was a textile importer who immigrated to New York in 1899 from Germany. His mother, Ella Friedman, was an accomplished painter. Oppenheimer had one brother, Frank, who was also a physicist. He attended the Ethical Culture School, where he had teachers that introduced him to Homer and Plato, which he read in the original Greek. He studied many languages, including Greek, Latin, French, and German. He had a natural feel for languages, and often learned one just to read something in its original language. Oppenheimer graduated with straight A's and was admitted to Harvard. In 1922, Oppenheimer entered Harvard majoring in chemistry. While at Harvard, he became drawn to physics. In 1925, he graduated from Harvard summa cum laude, completing his degree in only 3 years. In September 1925, he went to Christ College, Cambridge University, because he wanted to go to Rutherford's lab, Rutherford being the world's most renowned physicist at the time. Because of his unusual background, Rutherford wouldn't take him, so he went back to Sir Joseph John Thomas till 1926. While at Cambridge, he attended meetings introducing himself to many of the leading theorists. Oppenheimer's first 2 research papers were published while in Cambridge. They were submitted in May and July of 1926. The first paper was on molecular spectra, and the second dealt with the transitions to continuum states in hydrogen atoms. It was in these papers that made Max Born ask Oppenheimer to come to Göttingen. From 1926 till the summer of 1927, Oppenheimer stayed at Göttingen. He published 5 papers while there. One of his most notable papers that he published jointly with Born was on the Born-Oppenheimer method, which separates nuclear motion from electron motion in the mathematical treatment of molecules. In his day at Göttingen, a character trait of extreme arrogance became evident. In the spring of 1927, he received his Ph.D. with distinction. The professor who administered the exam had been quoted as saying, "Phew, I'm glad that's over." He was on the point of questioning me. After Göttingen, Oppenheimer returned to Harvard as a National Research Fellow. In 1936, he met Jean Tatlock, who was an active member of the Communist Party, and introduced him to many of her left-wing friends. Although Oppenheimer ever denies being a member of the Communist Party, he had many left-wing friends and did donate money to the left-wing organizations during this period. His left-wing sympathy would cause him trouble later in his career. In January 1942, Oppenheimer was made responsible for the fast neutron research in Berkeley, part of the United States Office of Scientific Research and Development, Section S1. In May, he was appointed director of S1. In early 1942, Colonel Groves was put in charge of the bomb effort, which was named the Manhattan Project. He selected Oppenheimer to be the scientific head of the project. Groves pushed through Oppenheimer's security clearance, despite the fact that his security division was unwilling to clear him because of his past associations. After discussing the need for the atomic bomb laboratory, Oppenheimer showed General Groves Los Alamos. In March 15, 1943, Oppenheimer and his staff arrived at Los Alamos. Under Oppenheimer's guidance, the Los Alamos laboratories were constructed. Oppenheimer recruited many of the best minds in physics to work there. He was managing more than 3,000 people and was still known for keeping his technical presence. The first atomic bomb explosion occurred on July 16, 1945 at 5:30 a.m. at the Alamogordo Air Force Base, baptized Trinity by Oppenheimer. The test bomb was a 5-kilogram plutonium bomb nicknamed Fat Man. Robert Oppenheimer's recollection of the explosion is, "There floated through my mind a line from the Bhagavad Gita, in which Krishna is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty. I have become death, the shatterer of worlds." After the war, Oppenheimer achieved nationwide recognition and became known as the father of the atomic bomb, and he even appeared on the cover of Time magazine. He also became an advisor to the federal government. He was appointed the chairman of the General Advisory Committee to the Atomic Energy Commission. He served in this role from 1947 to 1952. While in this role, Oppenheimer began voicing strong opposition to the development of the hydrogen bomb. Because of his political past and his strong opposition to the H-bomb, in 1953, Oppenheimer's security clearance was revoked just 1 day before it was due to expire. Many of the scientific community were shocked by this. Werner von Braun summed up in his opinion about the incident with a statement to the Congressional Committee, "In England, Oppenheimer would have been knighted." Oppenheimer remained very controversial after that. In 1955, he was invited to the University of Washington by a former student, but the university's president refused, calling Oppenheimer's presence not in the best interest of the university. The announcement that Oppenheimer would be its William James Lecturer on Ethics and Philosophy for 1957 at Harvard University prompted chastising letters to the Harvard Board of Overseers. During the Kennedy administration, scientists and government officials campaigned to rehabilitate Oppenheimer. President Kennedy invited Oppenheimer to the White House as a special guest for the Nobel laureates, although Oppenheimer had never won the Nobel Prize himself. During that year, Oppenheimer received several nominations for the Enrico Fermi Award. In April 1963, President Kennedy announced that Oppenheimer would be that year's award recipient. On November 22nd, the White House announced that Kennedy would hand Oppenheimer the award himself during a ceremony on December 2nd. That afternoon, Kennedy was assassinated, and Oppenheimer was awarded the Enrico Fermi Award by President Johnson. From 1947 to 1966, Oppenheimer served as the director of Princeton's Institute for Advanced Study. At the time of his appointment, Einstein was probably the most famous scholar in residence. In this role, he brought together many well-known scientists. These included Freeman Dyson, Qin Yang, and Song Dao Lee. This trio, along with Abraham Pais, authored one of the Enrico Fermi Award nominations. He retired from the Institute as director in 1966, but remained on the faculty.